Welcome and Happy New Year to everybody. And behalf of Propel and myself, I want to thank you for taking some time this evening to be online tonight. So if you are looking for scientific information, images of before and after photos, validation on studies or research, you've logged on to the wrong webinar. So tonight we're going to spend the next 45 minutes talking about what I have observed over the past in orthodontic offices I consult with regarding the balancing act of cost, patient experience, and time. One of the benefits of being a consultant is over the years you get exposed to very detailed information from dozens of different practices. We're always comparing and creating case studies on information or on what is working and what is not working to get to the root why. I'm going to share with you tonight two case studies and some of the reasons why one of the practices may be considered more attractive than the other. To give you a hint, one is dabbling in high frequency vibration and the other one has fully embraced it. So we're going to review some KPIs or key performance indicators, including profitability, also review some scheduling templates, growth, and opportunities within each case study. So there are several subcategories that fall under this balancing act, which we're going to briefly review. So in my opinion, the past year or maybe two has brought significant change to the orthodontic profession. Almost more than what I've observed in the past 25. So there are rapid changes and it's not going to stop. Technology is on fire. So the typical dental disclaimer and disclosure. So I'm not employed by any companies. I do not own stock or securities. Family member is not employed. And I have consulted or evaluated products for the following: Propel, Invisalign, 3M, and Ormco. And the disclaimer, you guys can review. If you have any questions, feel free to chime in or send a note. So anyone that has been in the orthodontic profession for more than a year has experienced and observed significant change. So I'm not sure how many US orthodontists are on the webinar versus Canadian orthodontists, but typically you are ahead of us with some, but I do feel like we're catching up. And the reality, or our reality, over the past 5 years has changed at a rapid pace. For those of you that follow junior hockey, of course, us Canadians, we watch it close, and I apologize for the results over the Christmas junior hockey tournament. You're ahead of us in a lot of things, but this year was our year to finally take home the gold medal, and we are very much proud Canadians. But as a practitioner today, trying to figure out what the best model is to survive is an ongoing challenge. So too many practitioners are spending too much time worrying about what and how the other office down the street is running their practice. And I have the conversation far too often advising not worry about what they're doing and focus on what you can control, which is what is happening within the four walls of your office. It's critical to have awareness of what patients are looking for, and by asking a few questions, they will tell you. It's not a secret. And it's important to understand why your patients are not making buying decisions. You need to understand what their objections are so that you can make the internal changes and be ready for them. So I understand that there's mixed emotions referencing probable patients as consumers. But when we break down their buying decisions and understand their buying process, it includes researching many orthodontic offices, going for multiple opinions, consulting and asking friends or family about their experience at specific offices, which means they are behaving like a typical consumer, and we don't need to feel bad for treating them this way. So don't be scared to ask the question, so what did you not get in your last consult that you're looking for from us? And more importantly, wait for their answer. So my question to you is, How do people find you, and what exactly makes them decide to call your office and schedule a new patient exam? This is what you need to learn, and this is what you need to build on. And if you are effective at learning this and building on this, you will discover new ways of building your practice very quickly. So we all know some of the changes. We have corporate, we have Smile Direct Club. I mean, aligner options and new aligner options are coming out regularly. The utilization of high frequency vibration and the iTero scanner. I mean, this was a huge change in the profession with this technology, in my opinion. So we're going to connect the dots between what our probable patients are looking for, or consumers, and what you're doing to ensure that they get what they want. And if we listen to our patients and if we ask the right questions, they're going to tell us what they want. And considering that the average probable patient is seeking 2.5 consults before they make a decision, they are more educated, they are more aware, and they are looking for some pretty straightforward things. And in my opinion, they're looking for value, they're looking for comfort, and they want a shorter treatment time. So before I continue, allow me a few moments to introduce myself. So this is my business partner, Cora Marie, and she is the founder of Strategics, and I'm the one that is standing beside her. So working in orthodontics myself since 1992, yes, that's almost, not quite 30 years, and being in dental all my life, as my father was a dentist and my mother ran his practices, and he bought and sold rural practices, which as a result, I learned a lot of valuable lessons. So the one thing I learned at a very young age was success in the dental business was significantly impacted by the relationships with families in the communities we lived. My parents supported all the local businesses, whether it be the car dealerships, the local home builder, the small sports store for hockey equipment and skates, despite them being double the price, the tiny grocery store that had very limited selection, and fresh produce, well, what's that? Nonetheless, it's how we grew up, and that's what we were taught to do. So treating people with respect and dignity was also something that we learned at a very young age. I'm grateful for this lesson, as I remember being at a friend's house for lunch, while my mother called my friend's mom to discuss the outstanding account and the hygiene appointments that needed to be booked. So talk about awkward. But again, learning these lessons early in life allows me to teach the teams I have the privilege of working with. So after being in private practice in orthodontics for 17 years, doing some consulting on the side, opening up a half a dozen startup practices, treatment coordinating 14 new patient exams a day, hiring and training a team of 28, I figured it was time to branch off. So I approached, well, my now business partner. I joined Strategics as a consultant. 2 years later, we became partners, and 11 years later, I've never looked back. So it's been quite the ride. My main focus has been orthodontics, which includes some pediatrics, as it seems orthos are now starting to be associated or part owners of pedo practices. So with aligner treatment exploding in the past few years and the aligner options expanding, accelerated orthodontics with high frequency vibration is also having a significant impact on treatment outcomes and efficiencies. So it really is a balancing act. And this is what we're going to look at in more detail, is the balancing act between cost, patient experience, and time. So this is the balancing act that practitioners are facing, and the questions that they get asked, or the questions that they're asking. So do I include vPro in my treatment fees? Do I present it as an option and give my patients a choice? Do I even use vPro? Does it complicate the sales process? Is it worth the money? Does it really enhance the patient experience? Does it really minimize discomfort? And does it really reduce treatment times? So this is what we're going to break down over the next few minutes together. So the balancing act. So before I share with you the 2 case studies that we're going to review tonight, I want to answer some of the above questions. And when we go back to balancing cost, patient experience, and time, I feel it's prudent that we establish a base of what the probable patient is looking for. So cost. Pay more for faster treatment, pay more for less visits, and the utilization of technology. So there are consumers that will 100% base their selection on price, period. They want straight or straighter teeth, and they do want to see an orthodontist for this service, and they will shop around to find the lowest price. There are also patients that want to ensure that they are getting good value. So an additional $30 a month over 20 months is not going to make or break their decision. They want to feel confident that this is the office that is providing the most value for their investment. They have done some research and they've talked to people. Then we can look at patient experience or comfort. So patient experience would be time, less appointments. Comfort or the discomfort is minimized. They have clear expectations of what to expect. They want the end result as fast as possible. So they've seen a picture or they've met somebody, they've talked to somebody, and they've made that emotional connection with that person. They will pay more for this. And typically their compliance is high for 12 months. And I also do see increased referrals when your patient experience is positive. I can validate this by one of our consultants and her personal experience. So she's very petite and everything about her is petite. So when she started her Invisalign treatment, of course, she got her attachments bonded, and with her mouth so tiny, she looked like she could not even wrap her lips around her mouth or close her lips because everything was so bulky and her teeth were so sore. So of course, we happened to be attending a conference and our friends of Rappel were there and insisted that she try the V Pro. So she used it that night for 5 minutes, and after 4 days, she was changing her aligners into the next set. She continued using her V Pro religiously. Her exact words, "It's a game changer." She could not believe the difference from a comfort perspective. So that story is touching on the V Pro experience only. But I also stress that your new patient experience needs to be a 10 out of 10. You cannot afford to be sloppy through any part of the new patient experience. And this is from the moment that your probable patient picks up the phone to make contact with your office for the very first time to the greeting they receive when they arrive for their appointment. So do they sit and fill out paperwork for the next 15 minutes? Because we all know how much we love doing that. Does the TC introduce herself and give them a welcome and give them a tour and take them back on time? Do your team members look up and acknowledge and say hello if that new patient is within 3 feet of them? Is your consult process streamlined and efficient? Are you taking a scan to show your patients the outcome simulator to get them excited about their end result, to get them to visualize that end result, to make that emotional connection to what they want? We've all heard the example of the home builder that you meet with to design your dream home. So the first home builder shows up with a sketch drawing. The second home builder shows up with blueprints. And if you're anything like me, it means absolutely nothing. It's like a foreign language. And the third home builder arrives with a digital render of your home that allows you to walk through each room and visualize where your belongings are going to go and visualize your finished home. So which builder do you think is building more houses? And that is the power of the outcome simulator. So I want to just digress and just share a story on a side note here that does relate to the patient experiences. That's what we're talking about right now. And since January 6th of 2020, so the last 3 weeks, I have been in 5 offices and interacted with 9 different orthodontists. And more than half of those orthodontists have brought up their phones to me and how calls are being missed, how patients are going elsewhere, and how impatient existing and probable patients are with this process. And I'll share a story. A doctor, busy practice. He has a very busy practice. He has multiple offices, and he has a family that has 3 patients in treatment, or 3 children in treatment. Pardon me. One of the 3 is in active treatment, and then he has 2 that are on recall. So the mom is also a professional in their community. She's a chiropractor. And obviously over the Christmas holidays, she went and took her kids for their checkups and cleaning. And the dentist said, I want you to take child number 2 to go and see the orthodontist because I have some concerns. And the mom says, well, actually, child number 2 is booked to see the doctor in the summer. And the dentist said, well, I would like child number 2 to be seen sooner. So the mom phones the office to reschedule that recall appointment that is currently booked for July. And the receptionist says, well, I'm reading the notes, and Dr. So-and-so says that we want to see child number 2 in the summer. And the mom says, well, I want my child booked now. And literally the receptionist would not book that child any sooner. So A, we're not listening to what the patient wants. So the mom hangs up and she's frustrated. The next day she phones back to the office and she doesn't get somebody. She leaves a message. All day comes, all day goes, and the mother does not get a call returned. So the mom happens to know somebody that works at the office, so she sends a text wondering if everything's okay, because she left a message in the morning and she did not hear anything back. So that person goes to the doctor and says, I just received feedback from a friend of mine who's trying to get through to book an appointment, and the receptionist has not called her back. So the doctor goes to the front desk and asks what's going on. So of course, the next morning there's immediate attention and the call is returned. So when the mom calls back, again, she gets voicemail. So without dragging the story further, the mom ended up taking all 3 children to another orthodontist in the community, even the child that is in active treatment. And she felt that if this office was that difficult to do business with, that she did not want to be fighting for the next 6 years while 3 kids had to go through treatment. So the doctor ended up calling the mom back, obviously apologizing for the results that this mom experienced, or for what the mom experienced in this practice. And the mom was very appreciative, but at the same time, the mom was also feeling, she just, you know what, I'm a business owner, I get it, but I just don't want this struggle. So when we talk about patient experience, I cannot stress to each and every one of you that it is so important to be answering those calls. It is so important to be responding to those emails that come in. If you have two-way texting, which I hope you do, it's so important to respond to those messages, because if you don't respond to them, the patient or the probable patient is going to the next in line, and I assure you that somebody will. So if we talk about your new patient process and how it relates to your orthodontic practice, you need to ask, are you offering same-day starts as a convenience for your families to get started? Does the doctor answer questions effectively and efficiently? Is the financial presentation presented in a way that makes it affordable for your families? Is the mom offered a scan at the same time? Do you dismiss your patients on time? So these are all the components in the office that must be 100% each and every appointment. And I cannot stress how this one process in your office, probably the most important process in your office, has the ability to differentiate you from other offices. And this process, if it's not reviewed, if it's not broken down to identify the opportunities to be better, and if it's not critiqued regularly, then you're not going to be exceeding the expectations. Because we cannot be the same in today's competitive market, especially when we confirmed earlier that our probable patients are seeking 2.5 opinions. If your new patient call is not 5-star, and if your welcome is not a 5-star to your practice, it's hard to get yourself out of that hole that you created right from the start. And from my recent conversations in the past few weeks, it seems pretty simple to differentiate yourselves. Just simply answer the phone. So we need to decommoditize our business and make it more about the experience. We are in the business of serving others, and it's important to make sure we're prepared for our patients and act like they are our boss. We need to be better than we were years ago because expectations have changed. I was in an office last week and I was observing a few processes and I was going over some reports with the financial coordinator. And the TC walked by and she had a lady with her. So to me, that is clearly a sign that this is a new patient start. This is a same day start and that mom wants to review the financials. So the TC kind of stopped by the door and she said, can I bring the patient into the financial coordinator's office? And the financial coordinator with this mom standing right there says, no, not right now. And the TC looks at me, I look at her, I am completely taken aback. And so the TC takes the patient back into the consult room and I look at the financial coordinator and I said, why not right now? Oh, I need to go clean up my office. I said, we need to be ready for these patients every single minute of every single day. This is priority. That office needs to be cleaned. That mom needs to be seated and we need to stomp on this immediately. This trumps everything. I absolutely could not believe it. So again, some examples. This is a reality. These are some of the things that I'm observing. There's so many opportunities to be better when it comes to serving our patients. And of course, time and efficiency, less appointments, less refinement, motivation, and motivation is a big one. I want to talk about motivation because I personally have a 17-year-old son who is an Invisalign, and he started his treatment early last year. And of course, like everybody, initially he's very motivated. And as time goes on, that motivation starts to slide. So on the weekends when I'm home and not traveling, I see him. He's not wearing his aligners. I would do his laundry, and guess what I'd find at the bottom of the washing machine? His aligners. So let's face it, he does have a great smile, but his mother, who's been in the business for almost 30 years, wants that smile perfect. So every Sunday we'd go through the discussion. Tanner, you need to wear your aligners. Yes, I know I need to wear my aligners. And he'd put in his aligners and he would start talking with a lisp. So a week later, we'd go through the same process. So I phoned Propel. I said, look, can I buy a V Pro? So I need to get this to Tanner because now he's in grade 12. He has his grad photos coming up. We talked about it. So guess what? He's utilizing his device. And in the past 8 weeks, he's gone through 12 aligners. And I know he's motivated because February 12th are his grad photos. And by then he should be through another 6 aligners. So it's 18 aligners in 11 weeks. So he's motivated. He sees that his treatment is progressing. And you know what? I'm sure after his grad photos mid-February that the motivation factor is going to go away. But nonetheless, I've gotten 18 aligners because as a result of him being motivated. So when we talk about time, the motivation, in my opinion, is a big one. You know, I think we have about a window of 12 months or so, and in adults, it might even be a little bit less, because we know that changing the aligners and wearing the aligners at some point does become a problem. And when we look at the time factor from the parent's perspective, the ones that are bringing them to their appointments, I mean, every parent on the planet thinks they are the busiest parent ever. No other parent juggles all the things that this parent juggles. School, 3 elite travel hockey teams that include 5 a.m. trips to the rink, tutoring for their kids because that is the expectation, piano lessons, carpooling to the kids' volunteer sessions multiple times a week, not to mention the schedule of the parent for him or herself and accommodating all their Netflix series that they need to fit in. But we hear this every single day in our office, which on a side note leads me to ask, Why are you not offering the same day starts? And why are you telling your patients they need to come back every 6 to 8 weeks for the next 24 months? 8-week intervals over 24 months is 13 visits to the office. That is assuming not one emergency, and we know that that's rare. 6-week intervals bumps that up to 17 visits in 24 months. So how do you think that fits into a parent's schedule? So do you think parents are doing the math when they're in the consultation with you? Of course they are. So if we hear how busy these families are and we can empathize with them, you will win every single time. And the analogy I use is I went to Australia in December, and it was my second trip last year. So trip number 1, the flight home was not direct. At the end of the trip, all I wanted to do is get home and be with my family. It felt like it took forever. And by the time I got home, I was exhausted. So my trip a few weeks ago, when I was booking flights, I did not care if it was $200, $300, or $500 more. I was taking the big jet across the Pacific Ocean and flying direct from Brisbane to Vancouver. I didn't care. I was flying direct in the most efficient way possible. So when you find out that time is crucial to your families, and if you understand all the options available, including vPro, ask them if it's something that they're interested in to reduce the number of visits to the practice. So Mrs. William, it sounds like you are an extremely busy family, and we have an option that is very efficient, will reduce your visits, and can shorten your treatment time. How does it sound to you? And when you are efficient, you are also going to see your practice grow internally because it's so important to your patients. They will tell everyone they know. And when they experience your streamlined process, they want to share it. And it's a balance of being streamlined, answering the questions, and not having your patients feel rushed because we need to get the next bum in the seat. So by asking the question, so Mrs. William, what do you value the most? Cost, comfort, or time? You know what? I'm confident that you're going to hear time. And now you have a solution that we can discuss in more detail. So as I said, we're going to review 2 case studies, and our focus is going to be cost, patient experience, and time. So we're going to look at 2 scenarios. So scenario number 1, $3.2 million in production, 206 doctor days a year, 4 days per week, 3 doctors, so most days 2 doctors on at a time, 1 owner and 2 associates, 11 staff, and the average treatment time is 26 months. And their Invisalign to fixed is 80%, 20 in fixed. Their profit is 1.12 million at a 65% overhead, obviously more staff and more doctors. We have case study B, which is $2 million in production, 170 doctor days, 4 days a week, 1 doctor, 4.5 staff, and the average treatment time is 13 months with a similar split of 80% Invisalign, 20% fixed. $1.04 million in profit with an overhead of 48%, 1 doctor to pay, and less than half the staff to pay. Also, almost 20% less clinical days. So think about which office that you would prefer. So as I mentioned, case study A is dabbling with high frequency vibration, and case study B is consistently using high frequency vibration. So when we look at the scheduling template, I mean, case study A, it looks pretty straightforward. The reality is, this isn't how it looks the day before. With the juggling of rescheduling appointments, the appointments that are templated need to be shortened in order to accommodate all the appointments and the patients that need to be seen. The template is full. The day before, it's very seldom does it resemble this. It's jammed with insert refinements, refinement scans, and it's overbooked. The 45 minutes allocated for bonding attachments is reduced to a 1 unit, 15 minutes, as there's not enough appointments to accommodate the active patients. The records in the recall column is supposed to be left open, so same-day starts can be accommodated and financials can be reviewed. However, because of the demand of patients, that seldom happens, and they need the chair space for existing patients. So the average wait times in peak hours, so before and after school, or I call it happy hour, is at least 25 minutes. If a patient needs to change an appointment, there's nowhere to put them, and rescheduling is about 8 weeks out. So in my opinion, this is not service, and it's hard to accommodate more growth when the template is full. So if we look at case study B, on a given day, approximately 2/3 of these appointments are booked, so there is lots of room to accommodate same-day starts and growth. The office has a lot of room to expand and patients are happy. The template looks fairly consistent day after day. It's being followed and appointments can be changed and patients can be accommodated. The average wait time and peak hours, well, they're non-existent because patients are seated within 5 minutes of their scheduled appointment time. So I asked the question, which office would you prefer to own? So if we look at case study A, I would select case study B. The overhead is less than 50%. The team is small, which, as we know, results in less drama. And when we look at balancing the big three of cost, patient experience, and time, B is excelling. The internal referrals are significantly higher than external referrals. And the opportunity for growth in case study B is significant. The office, as it is today, will continue to grow with the internal referrals that are consistently being generated as patients are extremely happy. Treatment fees are consistent, and Office B is offering high frequency vibration for all of their aligner patients. Treatment times are efficient, so the practice can continue to grow. Office or case scenario A is dabbling with the V-Pro, which proves to have some challenges. So challenges include inconsistent messaging from the team and the inability to track results because the systems are not always being followed and the V-Pro is not always being offered. We know that turnover in offices is inevitable, and with a constant change in team, it's a constant struggle to be consistent. So when we break down the appointment flow in case scenario or case study A, we can see that at appointment 1, it's the new patient exam and the iTero scan. And in case study A, we see that appointment 2 is scheduled for 8 weeks later. And this appointment may need to be changed because the ClinCheck has not been done and the aligners have not arrived in the office. So out of the gate, we're losing some of that motivation that the patient initially had when we got them excited when they were in the office. So they're on 10-week appointment cycles for their Invisalign checks. And when we get to around week number 40 to determine whether a refinement scan is going to be taken, that's when things become inconsistent. But you can see appointment 7, 8, a scan from deliver more aligners, 9, 10, and 11, and 12. And we're up to 78 months of treatment, and the patient is not yet finished. So when we look at scenario B, there's really two channels that the patients go through in this practice. A new patient exam and scan. 4 weeks later, they get their insert, so they get their attachments and their aligners with their V-Pro. And they're on 16-week aligner checks. And in this scenario, they are getting a refinement scan. And then they're being evaluated for a debond, and they're being debonded. Their attachments are being removed at approximately week 72. And when we look at the no refinement option, it's their exam and scan. They're getting their attachments with their aligners and their V-Pro. They're still on 16-week Invisalign checks, but they're being finished sooner without a refinement. In both scenarios in this office, they are utilizing high frequency vibration. It's just whether or not they're having a refinement or not. But the efficiencies in this office, and every single time, it's the same. And it really is remarkable to watch, because these patients their treatment is so efficient. They're so highly motivated to finish their treatment because they're seeing their results, that they're finishing on time, they're tracking, they're using their device, and they're referring other people to the practice. So when we summarize this and review this information, why are they different? So from one perspective, case study A simply just has longer treatment times, which resulting in the need for more visits, which means more staff, more refinements, more clin checks, more associates, more overhead, and less room for growth and flexibility. And in case study B, they're using high frequency vibration. And I'm not suggesting that V-Pro is going to solve all your problems, but these case studies suggest it's a viable tool that will reduce the treatment time, which will ultimately drive efficiencies and drive overall profitability. So I don't want to overlook one more advantage, which is retention. And in mature practices, retention does become an issue with poor compliance from patients. And years later, these patients are coming back asking for options to fix their relapse. So I did get this photo from Dr. Tom Shipley, and you see this every week in practice, or you hear about it every single week in practice. And we all have heard the sob stories that we get from the patients or the parents. And I've also seen patients that come into the reception area. If a clinic chair is not available, they'll sit in the reception area with their device in for 10, 15 minutes, and you can see those retainers starting to seat. Yes, they're tight, but it's definitely a solution versus rescanning, or worse, taking another impression on these patients, because we know how fun and unpleasant impressions are. And another scenario is there's relapse in this patient, and they use their V-Pro. They came back 4 months later, and the aligners were seating. And this not only did result in a child number 2 starting in treatment, in addition to a non-family referral, because the patients are happy. So I completely respect it's an overwhelming process for owners or business owners to change. And that is what Strategics, or our company, does. We look at all aspects of your practice, from the new patient phone call to the entire new patient experience. We review the scripting, we review your clinical efficiencies, and we follow up with processes to identify ways to engage your patients back into your practice. So we implement KPIs or metrics to measure success, and we ensure we are generating the results that you want. We work with your team, and we provide the support and the tools to be successful, and we also hold them accountable with execution. So that is what our ROI is. So we review, we oversee, and we implement, which results in your increased ROI, or rate on investment. So in short, we're going to help find the perfect balance between cost, patient experience, and time. And we take the uniqueness of your business and we make sure that you can balance your production and your days worked and income and ensure that we achieve your objectives. We need to be in tune with what our patients are looking for, and we need to have solutions and answers for their demands. And one of these solutions is high frequency vibration. For patient comfort, fewer visits and results, that is what they're ultimately looking for. They want the results in a shorter period of time. And the cost of the V-Pro will be absorbed with less visits to the office and increased patient referrals. And I respect, as owners and as doctors and clinicians, there is definitely a ceiling to your treatment fees. And you cannot continue to add extras on top of extras to your fees. But simplifying and offering aligner treatment for X or accelerated aligner treatment for Y is giving your patients a choice. So that being said, when the benefits that you receive as a business owner, such as reduced visits and shorter treatment times, we need to evaluate the economics of your practice and see if it makes sense to include as your standard treatment fee. So the new reality is we're going to continue to be challenged to be better than what we have been in the past. And our patients are evaluating everything that we say and every option that we present. So are you ready for their challenge? And yes, it is possible to balance cost, patient experience, and time. By asking the right questions, you're going to get a better understanding of what your patients are looking for, and you can give it to them. And once you're in that rat race or that hamster wheel, it is hard to get out of it when you're racing to catch up. So it's when you need to decide what your time is worth. And I ask this question all the time when doctors are expressing their frustration with the time that they spend on letters or treatment planning or clin checks. And we sit and explore different solutions, but I break down what doctors' hourly rates are and really quickly puts their decisions into perspective. So what we've shown is an office that uses high frequency vibration, and we do see some benefits with their patients and their internal efficiencies, and it may be a tool that is worth your time to consider. Much like hiring a practice management consultant to help with some of your day-to-day decisions and long-term strategies. Tools to help you get to where you want to be. So if there's anything that I can do to help, please reach out. Or if there's anything that you want to discuss in more detail to see how they align with your specific practice needs, I'm available at any time. So now we are going to move into our question segment. And I'm going to, so you guys are more than welcome to type out your questions, and I will see those on my end, and I am happy to answer them. Now to do that, I just need to change screens for a minute so that I can drag the question segment over. So excuse me here for just a few seconds. So I see a question here on the screen, and I love it. So thank you for this. And this is what it reads. Patients are the boss, in quotations, question mark. Do you really think this is how dental medical offices should be run? Patient expectations are important, but by no means should they ever think that they are knowledgeable enough to be the boss. This is how Smile Direct started, ... sigh. I completely agree. And I guess when I'm saying the boss, it's that ultimately without the patient, they're the ones that ultimately sign our paycheck. They're the ones that we need to treat like they are signing our paycheck. So when they come in and they have expectations, or again, just looking for somebody to answer the phone call, or for somebody to respond timely to that email that they send into the practice, we need to treat them with absolute respect and dignity, and we need to treat them timely, because their decision to proceed with treatment in our office is ultimately what is going to allow you as a business owner to pay your team. So should they be the boss, and should they be knowledge enough to be the boss, I agree with that component. It's more just treating them with the respect and the dignity, and treating them and serving them so that they want to remain patients in the practice. Thank you for that. And Smile Direct Club, yes, that's a whole nother conversation, and we won't do that tonight, but if there's anything that you want to discuss with that, I would be happy to have that conversation at a later time. A question here that says, or that is asking, are all your offices using a scheduling template? And the answer to this is when I go on site, no, a lot of them are not, but using a scheduling template, in my opinion, is definitely one of the most important systems in an orthodontic office. It can make or break a day, a month, a year, in my opinion, and I believe a scheduling template is very important to achieve goals. So when I do work with an office, absolutely a scheduling template is something that we absolutely look at in terms of efficiencies, for sure. And scheduling templates are very customized. What works for one office does not necessarily mean it's going to work for another office. Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Being a Canadian, do I consult in the USA? Yes, absolutely I do. If your practice is close to a wine region, I will absolutely make it a priority, California specifically, but absolutely, of course, I consult in Canada and the United States, for sure. How much time or how many months does high frequency vibration reduce from the treatment time? So basically pushing treatment or pushing aligner changes from 7 days to 4 days is what I am seeing and what I am hearing. So not quite half, but if we're looking at a 13-month treatment time, they seem to be completing their treatment at around month 8. So there is definitely a significant reduction there in treatment time. And I'm hearing that feedback on a regular basis, not weekly, but I'm definitely hearing that on a regular basis. A question, are you recommending including high frequency vibration in only aligner patients? And I'm not suggesting that for tonight's presentation for the case studies. The data that was reviewed was specifically for aligner patients, yes, but I do see offices that are using high frequency vibration in fixed appliances also. Thank you. I can see a question coming here, just how much are my offices paying per unit? So this is, I guess I should be careful with this one, but I'm finding that ordering in bulk, my offices are paying $300 US for a device for the V Pro, and I don't know, I don't really get involved in that. I just say contact your rep, but $300 US for a device is what a lot of offices have been paying that I'm aware of, and I don't want to commit to that. Again, I don't work for Propel. Are patients keeping their device? Absolutely. Just the last few slides there that I showed in regards to retention, absolutely. Make sure that you are telling your patients to keep their device when they're done their active orthodontic treatment. I have even had offices that have sold a device to patients that are going into retention, and their pitch on that is, you know, it's kind of like an insurance claim. So if they have their scan on the patient, they're also purchasing a vPro, and should they lose their retainers, they are actually getting new retainers printed from their the scan that they took at their debond, and with the utilization of their Propel device, those retainers are, you know, whatever Essex or whatever they're using are actually starting to seat. They might be very, very tight. So I have seen that in offices that are using vPro for that reason. Absolutely. How often am I on site to implement my ROI? Good question. Somebody was paying attention. Great question. Thank you for that. It varies. I'm going to say any from 2 to 6 times a year, and it really depends on what the needs are of that specific practice, what the doctor is looking for specifically in the practice. With technology today and the utilization of webinars and the KPIs or the metrics that we implement when we're working with an office, the TC tracking metrics that we review, really the ability to log in remotely. There is a lot that I can do from my office that reduces the expense to the business owner by minimizing my travel. If that is specifically what you're looking for. So more of a virtual program, absolutely, that's something that we offer, and I do that frequently. I like initially to obviously be on site in person at first to get to know the personalities, to meet with the doctor, and to have a really solid understanding of the patient flows, the inefficiencies, the efficiencies, just the good, the positives, and the opportunities for improvement. So being on site for a couple days really just allows me that exposure. So very, very flexible there. Another question here. In the offices that use vPro, did their production increase? And my answer to that is yes. From the efficiencies, the less chair time, the opportunity to grow, or the ability to start more patients, yes, their production did increase. And generally, when I'm consulting with a practice, if growth is something that they're looking for, we do see pretty quick increase in production also. And that comes from just some efficiencies in the practice, cleaning up some reports, some TC training, working on the new patient experience. So there's a lot of things that we can do, and some minor or some tweaks that actually have a significant impact for sure. Another question we have, if you're putting in questions, please hurry. We have a couple more minutes left, but how did I see 14 new patients a day? I was really young and fast. How did I see that? I had an assistant that basically took a pan and photos on all my patients, or an iCat, depending on what was just some concerns and whatnot on the referral. And that information would be uploaded into the consult room, and introduction or a handoff would be made. And that would allow me 30 minutes with each patient to go over to do the exam with the doctor. And the doctor that was literally a 3-minute process. The doctor that I worked for, if he was in there longer, it actually decreased my conversion. So I'm an extrovert, he was an introvert, and it just worked really, really well. So that would allow me basically 25 minutes, some time to build that rapport, do the exam, confirm the findings in the treatment plan, answer any questions, review the financials, and I would take care of all the insurance information and getting that sent in. So I had 30 minutes a patient, and I saw 14 new patients, so that gave me 7 hours of new patients. And you know what? It worked. It was awesome, and I loved every single minute of it. So that we are basically at 7 o'clock or 7 o'clock my time. I guess that's 9 o'clock your time for those of you that are out in the East. So I just want to, again, thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate your questions that you submitted this evening. And if there's anything that I can do to help you or answer any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you.